My uncle's wife died, giving birth to her sixth child, until he could remarry 2 months later. His children were cared for by my mother and my other aunts, like one big family. We should have been kind to each other, but there was resentment, there was anger, there was jealousy, there was, as there would be in the rest of the country, civil war. Mother John's family lived a few kilometers away, but they might as well have been on the other side of the Hindu Kush mountains. They had given their daughter to Father John and did not want to interfere in her relationship with her new family. Mother John's deformed sister Shaima was the exception. Deformities were not easily forgiven, so Khala Shaima steeled herself to resist the name-calling, the ridiculing, the gawking. Older than Mother John by nearly 10 years, our aunt would tell us things that no one else would say. She would tell us about the war, how the warlords controlled everything and conquered without mercy, even attacking women in the most shameful way of all. Usually, Mother John hushed her older sister with a pleading look. We were young. After all, it wasn't Khala Shaima who would have had to quiet our night's terrors. Sometimes Khala Shaima forgot we were children and told us so much that we sat wide-eyed, frightened of our own father. When Father John came home, we cowered. His moods ranged from jubilant to foul, but there was no predicting where on the spectrum he would be, or when he would make an appearance. Mother John was lonely and welcomed her sister's visits, even if her in-laws griped about them. My grandmother made sure to report to her son just how many times Khala Shaima had come to visit while he was away, clucking her tongue in disapproval and inciting his wrath. It was her way of showing Mother John that she was in control of our house, even if it sat 50 feet away from the main house. Everyone wanted control, but it was hard to get. The only one who seemed to have any at all was Abdul Khalik Khan, the warlord. He and his militia were able to gain control of our town and the neighboring towns, having pushed back their rivals. We were north of Kabul and hadn't seen any fighting in about 4 years. But from what we heard, Kabul was besieged. People in our town shook their heads in dismay at the news, but our homes were already pockmarked and turned to rubble. It was time for privileged in Kabul to taste what we had survived. Those were ugly times. I can only imagine what my father must have seen from the time he was a teenage boy. Like so many others, he numbed himself to the ugliness with the medicine that Mother John referred to. He clouded his mind with the opium that Abdul Khalik kept around, as crucial to his men's ability to wage war as the ammunition strapped to their backs. Mother John grew weary of our father, but all she could do was look after us girls. Khala Shaima brought her some concoction that she took so she wouldn't have any more children after me. I don't know what the medicine was, but it worked for 6 years. When Mother John felt her belly stretch again, she prayed and did all the things that Khala Shaima told her to do. Nothing worked. Disappointed and fearful, she named our sister Sitara and dreaded the day that Mother John would come home to find out she had brought yet another daughter in this house. Then came the Taliban. They were just another faction in the civil war, but they gained in strength and their regime crept across the country. It didn't affect us much until we were pulled out of school. Windows were blackened and music was banned. Mother John sighed, but carried on her daily routines, largely unaffected by the new codes. When word got out that our town had fallen to the Taliban, Abdul Khalik brought his men home to fight back and to defend his honor as warlord. There were weeks of explosion, crying, burying, and then the men came home victorious. Our town was again our town. Father John stayed home for a few months. He spent with his brothers, tried to help his father recover some business, and even helped some of the neighbors to rebuild their homes. Things were going well until the day that a young boy came knocking on our door with a message for Father John. The next morning, Father John oiled his machine guns, donned his macaw hat, and headed back out to rejoin the war. He came back here and there, but his mood swings were worse with each visit. We saw him only 2 or 3 days at a time, and we were children, too young to understand the rage he brought home. He was not the same person at all. Even Bibi John, my grandmother, would cry after his visit, saying she had lost another son to the war. It was my cousin Sadiq who told us about the news he had heard from our grandfather. America, that's who. They came and they're bombing the Taliban. They have the biggest guns, the biggest rockets, and their soldiers are so strong. Why didn't America come before? Shala had asked. She was nearly 12 years old then, wise enough to come up with questions that made us look at her with admiration. Sadiq was 10, but had the confidence of a boy twice his age. His father had been killed years ago, and he grew up under our grandfather's reign. He was the man of his house. Because the Taliban bombed America, now they're angry and they're bombing them back. Our grandfather entered the courtyard and overheard our conversation. Sadiq John, what are you telling your cousins? I was telling them about America, Baba John, that they're firing rockets at the Taliban. Father John, Shala asked timidly, did the Taliban destroy many homes in America? No, Bachram. Someone attacked the building in America. Now they are angry and they have come after him and his people. Just one building? Yes. We were silent. It sounded like a good news. A big, powerful country had come to our rescue. Our people had an ally in the war against the Taliban. But Baba John could see in Shala's eyes that there was something that puzzled her, and he knew just what it was. Why would America be so upset after one building was attacked? Half our countries had crumpled under the Taliban. We were all thinking the same thing. If only America would have been upset about that too. And this is what I mean by it's so well written, because this, what I just read, is so, it's so obvious, but yet nobody says it out loud. You didn't even hear what I just read, hey? Do you want me to read it again? Chapter 4. Now we're back to Shakiba's story. Shakiba continued to toil in the fields, as if her father were at her side. She fed the chicken and the donkey and fixed the plow when the axle snapped on the stone in the field. The house was quiet, somber. Sometimes the silence grated on her nerves, and she would try to break it with the sound of chores or by talking to the birds perched on the wall. Some days she felt content, almost happy to be self-sufficient. She hoped her mother, like the small flowers she had planted, while she listened to the bulbul sing over Akila's grave. Some things were difficult. Without her father around, Shakiba had no connection with the village or its resources. She used the cooking oil sparingly and was careful with how much she harvested from their field so that she would not go hungry. She dug a small trench between the house and the wall and buried some potatoes so that she would have stock for the coming winter months. She picked the beans and ate few, leaving the rest to dry for later. Her father's death seemed to usher winter in sooner than usual. By Shakiba's warped sense of time, Shakiba had little to care about the month or year. The sun would rise and fall, and she continued to do her chores, occasionally bothering to wonder what would come of her, how long would this existence last. More than once she thought of ending her life. Once she'd pinched her nose and shut her mouth. She felt her chest tighten and tighten until she finally took a breath and continued to live, cursing her weakness. She again contemplated digging her own plot beside her father and lying down in it. Maybe the dark angel Jibreel would see her and reunite her with her family. Shakiba wondered if she would see her mother again. If she did, she prayed it would be the mother who sang while she cooked their meals, not the bald, glassy-eyed woman Shakiba had buried. Winter came, and Shakiba blundered along, subsiding on what she had to manage to keep through the fall. Each time she bothered to undress and bathe, she noticed her ribs protruding more. She used her siblings' clothing to cushion her hip bones from the hard floor. She grew weak, her hair brittle and frayed. Her gums bled when she chewed, but she barely noticed the taste of her blood in her mouth. Spring came, and Shakiba looked forward to the warmth of the sun and the task that came with it. But along with the spring came a visitor, and the first hint that Shakiba would not be allowed to live like this for long. She was feeding the chicken, and she saw a young boy in distance coming towards her home from her grandfather's house. She could not tell who it was, but went inside and donned her burqa. She paced back and forth, peeking through the door from time to time to confirm that the boy was still coming towards her. Indeed, he was. As he neared, Shakiba could see that he was no more than 7 or 8 years old. She marveled at how healthy he looked and wondered what her cousins were eating at the main house. Once more, Shakiba was thankful for her ability to hide behind the blue cloak. "Salam!" he called out when he was near enough. "I am Hamid. Dear uncle, I want to speak to you." Hamid? Who is Hamid? It did not surprise Shakiba that she didn't recognize him. Likely, many cousins had been born since she lost contact with the clan. Shakiba wondered how to reply. Should she answer or should she keep quiet? What would be less inviting? "Salam! I am Hamid. Dear..." Shakiba cut him off. "Your uncle is not home. He cannot speak to you now." There was no answer for some time. She wondered if Hamid had been warned about her. She could imagine the conversation. "But be careful. Your uncle has a daughter. A monster, really. She's terrible to look at. So don't be frightened. She's insane and may say crazy things." Shakiba put her ear to the wall, trying to hear Hamid was still there, or if he was walking away. "Who are you?" Shakiba did not know how to answer. I said, who are you? I am. I am. Are you Uncle's daughter? Are you Shakiba? Yes. Where's my uncle? I was told to bring him a message. He's not here. Where is he then? At the edge of the field. Did you see the tree? The one? The one that should be growing apples, but grow nothing at all? There, that's where he is. You walked right past him, along with my mother, my sister, and my two brothers. If you have anything to tell him, you can tell him as you make your way back to the house with all the food. But Shakiba didn't say anything that she was thinking. She had that much sense left in her. I said, where is he? He has gone out. When will he be back? I do not know. Well, tell him that Bobo Shuggle wants to see him. She wants to come to the house. Bobo Shuggle was Shakiba's paternal grandmother. Shakiba hadn't seen her since before the cholera took the family out. Mama Shuggle had come over to tell her son about a girl in village, the daughter of a friend. She had wanted her son to take her on as a second wife, maybe even to have him move back into the family compound with the second wife and keep the first wife at this house. Shakiba remembered watching her mother listen to the conversation with her head bowed, saying nothing. Tell Bobo Shuggle that he's not here now. She was skirting the truth. You will tell my uncle what I have said? I will. She could hear his footsteps grow distant, but waited a full hour before emerging from the wall, just in case. She wasn't the brightest girl, but even Shakiba knew it was just a matter of time before her grandmother sent another message. 3 months passed. Shakiba was attaching the harness to the donkey to begin tilling the soil when she saw 2 men walking toward the house. She darted inside and grabbed her burqa in panic. Her heart fluttered as she waited for them to near. She kept her ear against the inner wall, listening for footsteps. Ismail, come out! Speak to us! Your brothers are here! Her father's brothers? Bobo Shuggle meant business. Shakiba frantically tried to think of something reasonable to say. My father's not home. Enough with this nonsense, Ismail. We know you're here. Ismail, come out. Speak to us. Your brothers are here. Her father's brothers? Bobo Shuggle meant business. Shakiba frantically tried to think of something reasonable to say. My father's not home. Enough with this nonsense, Ismail. We know you're here. You're too much of a coward to leave your home. Come on out, or we'll barge in and shake some sense into you. Please, my father's not home. She could hear her voice cracking. Would they force their way in? It wouldn't take much effort. The door would fold in at their slightest touch. God damn you, Ismail! What are you doing hiding behind your daughter? Move outside, girl. We are coming in. Chapter 5. Self-focusing. Rahima. Chapter 5. Rahima. Mother John took me behind the house with Father John's scissors and razors. I sat nervously while my sisters watched. She pulled my long hair into a ponytail behind my head, whispered a prayer, and slowly began to shear away. Shala looked astonished. Rahila looked entertained, and Parveen watched only for a moment before running back into her house for her pencils and papers. She sketched furiously, with her back turned to me. Motherjan cut and trimmed, bending my ear forward to trim around it. She cut my bangs short and straight across my forehead. I looked at the ground around me and saw hair everywhere. She brushed the loose strands from my shoulder, flew at my neck, and dusted off my back. My neck felt bare, exposed. I giggled with nervous excitement. Only Shala noticed the single tear that trickled down Motherjan's cheeks. The next step was my clothing. Motherjan asked my uncle's wife for a shirt and pair of pants. My cousin had outgrown them, as had his older brother and my other cousin before him. She sent me inside to get dressed while she and my sister swept my girl hair from the courtyard. I slipped one leg in the other. They were slimmer and heavier than the usual balloon pants I wore under my dresses. I cinched the strings at the waist and made a knot. I pulled the tunic over my head and realized there was no ponytail to pull through after it. I let my hand run against the back of my head, feeling the short ends. I looked down and saw my knobby knees through the pantaloons. I folded my arms across my chest and cocked my head, as I'd seen my cousin Siddiq do so many times. I kicked my foot pretending there was a ball in front of me. Was that it? Was I a boy already? I thought of Khala Shema. I wondered what she would say if she were to see me like this. Would she smile? Had she really meant when she suggested I should turn into a boy? She told us our great-great-grandmother had worked on a farm like a boy, that she'd been a son to her father. I had waited for her to go on to get to the part where our great-great-grandmother turned into a boy. Khala Shema said she would come back and tell us more of the story another day. I hated having to wait. I smoothed my shirt down and went back out to see what my mother thought. Well, aren't you a handsome young boy? Mother John said. Even I could detect the hint of nervousness and uncertainty in her voice. Are you sure, Mother John? Don't I look odd? Shala covered her mouth with her hand at the sight of me. Oh my goodness! You look just like a boy! Mother John, you can hardly tell it's her. Mother John nodded. You won't have to get your knots taken out anymore, Rohila said enviously. Getting the knots brushed out of our hair was painful with morning routine. Her hair coiled into a mess of tiny bird's nests that Mother John struggled to brush out while Rohila winced and squirmed. Bacham, from now on, we're going to call you Rahim instead of Rahima, Mother John said tenderly. Her eyes looked heavier than they should have been at the age of 30. Rahim? We have to call her Rahim? Yes, she is now your brother Rahim. You will forget about your sister Rahima and welcome your brother. Can you do that, girls? It's very important that you speak only of your brother Rahim and never mention that you have another sister. Just in case we forget what she looked like. Marine drew this picture of Rahima. Rohila handed Mother John the sketch Parveen had done while she was cutting my hair. It was an incredible likeness of me, the old me with long hair and naive eyes. Mother John looked at the drawing and whispered something we didn't understand. She folded the paper and placed it on the tabletop. Is that it? Just like that? She's a boy? Shala looked skeptical. Just like that, Mother John said quietly. This is how things are done. People will understand. We'll see. She knew my sisters would be the hardest to convince. Everyone else, teachers, aunts, uncles, neighbors, they would accept my mother's new son without reservation. I wasn't the first Bacha Posh. This was a common tradition for families in want of a son. What Madame Jean was already dreading was the day they would have to change me back. But that would only be when I began to change into a young woman. That was still a few years away. Oh wow! Perrine had returned to the courtyard to see what happened. So just like that, she's a boy? Nope, not yet, Perrine said calmly. She's not a boy yet. What do you mean? Rohila asked. She's got to walk under a rainbow. A rainbow? What are you talking about? My God, Perrine, Mother John said, smiling faintly. I don't remember telling you about that poem. How do you even know about it? Perrine shrugged her shoulders. We weren't surprised. Perrine couldn't tell you if she had eaten breakfast, but she often knew things that no one expected her to know. What is she talking about, Mother John? I asked, curious to find out if Perrine was right or if her imagination had gotten the best of her today. She's talking about an old poem. I don't know if I can even remember how the story goes, but it's about what happens if you pass under a rainbow. What happens if you pass under a rainbow? Rohila asked. There's a legend that walking under a rainbow changes girls into boys and boys into girls. What? Is that true? Could that really happen? This perplexed me. I hadn't walked under a rainbow. I'd never even seen one. For that matter, how is this change supposed to work? Tell us the poem, Mother John. I know you remember. We drank in spirits. Arlene started off. Mother John sighed and went into the living room. We followed her. She sat with her back against the wall and looked to the ceiling, trying to recall the details. Her chador fell across her shoulder. She sat around and waited. Afsana, Sisana, she began. One story, 30 stories, and then she sang the poem. We drank in the spirits and played in the fields, enamored of indigos, saffrons, and teals. There was a fog in the space between them and I. Colors reached to the touch. God in the sky. I envy the arc, stretched strong and wide, as one brilliance blends into another. Colors bow deeply to welcome a brother. We humble servants meekly pass under. Rustam's bow changes girls to a boy, makes one the other, until the air grows dry and tires of the game. And the mist opens its arms, colors reclaimed. Chapter 6. Shakiba. Ooh. Can you see? I don't think you can see. Okay. You can see now. Shakiba. Shakiba sat with her back against the cool wall. It was night and the house was quiet. Snoring came from every direction, some louder than others. By the soft glow of the moon, she could see the kettles and the pots she had washed and stacked in a corner to make room for her blanket. Like most nights, her eyes were wide open while everyone else's were closed. This was the hour of the night when she would wonder what she could have done differently. Her uncles had barged into the home that day, refusing to be turned away. Now that she had been reunited with her grandmother, she could hardly blame her for her persistence. No one wanted to disappoint. No one wanted to disappoint Bobo Shagul. She was horrid enough when she was satisfied. It hadn't taken long for Shakiba's uncles to realize that something had happened to her father. The house smelled of rot and loneliness. Shakiba had stopped sweeping the floor and had let the potato peels collect in the corner, too disinterested to take them out of the house. After a time, she didn't even notice the smell, but it just was in the house. Shakiba had become apathetic. She hadn't bothered to wash her dress, and for most of the winter she had curled up in a ball under a blanket, letting her own stench fester. Daylight and warmth had inspired her to wash herself, but it would take more than a few baths to undo what had become of her. Her hair was tangled, nest of lice, and unbrushable for months. Shakiba was pale and gaunt. For a moment, her uncles believed they may have been looking at Jinn, a spirit. How could living flesh look like that? They asked for her father, their eyes scouting the room, realizing instantly that he was in there. Shakiba trembled and turned to the side, wanting to hide from them, but making sure they were not approaching her. They couldn't see her, but they could smell the fear, sweat, and blood. They asked again, louder, angrier. That was when Shakiba left. She heard a scream, and a blue ghost ran into the wall that had sheltered her from the view of other. The wall her father had built to guard his family. Another scream as she fell to earth. Hands grabbed the ghost, shocked at how easily their fingers circled bones. The ghost wanted to fight back, to run away and escape, but the men had the meat on their bones. They gripped her and she let go, allowing them to roll her into a blanket and carry her back to the family compound in much same way that she carried her father to his grave. As she passed by the tree where her family lay buried, Shakiba moaned and called out to them. She tried to lift her head to see the rounded mounds of earth. Father, father, Tariq, Munis, Bulbul. She did not see her uncles look at each other, sharing a realization that the entire family was dead. Even their brother Ismail. Shakiba didn't see them bite their tongue, hold back their tears, and mutter that they should have been there to wash their brother's body and throw dirt on his grave. Shakiba was the last survivor. The one who should not have survived. They wondered how long this girl had been living alone and shook their head with the shame of the situation. A girl by herself? What a dishonor this would bring to their family if anyone in the village were to find out. They laid her in the courtyard of the home while they went to notify Bobo Shagul. Within minutes, a spry old lady stood over Shakiba, peering down through the cataract-clouded eyes. To get a better look at the grandchild she could do without. Tell your wives to get her washed up. Warn them that her face will turn their stomach. And tell them to feed her. We must deal with this creature now if we are to save our good names within the village. May God punish her for keeping her father from us. My son! Not even telling us when he had left this world. She will pay for this. I hate Bobo Shagul. I hate her. Bobo Shagul proved to be a woman of her word. Since her husband had died 2 years ago, she had happily taken on the role of the family matriarch. She presided over her son's rights with her walking stick. Through there was nothing at all wrong with her legs. Oh, no, not true. No, there was nothing wrong with her legs. She had earned the right to walk with her head high she had given her son since she had given her husband 6 sons and 2 daughters. Now it was her turn to oversee the roost with the same iron fist she had survived. Shakiba let herself be undressed and bathed. She found it much easier than resisting. The youngest wives were assigned the formidable task of deconstructing the beast Shakiba had become. Pails of water were brought in. Her hair was sheared, too far gone to salvage. They cursed her for the rank smells of everybody possessed their nostrils seared. They put food in her mouth. Someone moved her jaw, reminding her how to chew. In few days, Shakiba's mind returned to her body. She began to hear what people were saying about her. She began to notice that her belly did not ache with hunger. Her fingers reached up and felt a headscarf covering the ragged edges of her chopped hair. I must look like one of my cousins, she thought. Her skin was raw and reddened from the brutal baths she had been given. Her aunts had scrubbed a layer of filth from her with a washcloth too rough for her frail skin. She had some scabs, while other areas stayed red and chapped. Her body too malnourished to repair minor damage. At night, she slept on a blanket in the narrow kitchen, her feet often knocking against a pot and waking her up. In the morning, she was moved into one of the many rooms where she would be out of the way while the wives prepared breakfast. I'm tired of lifting her. Get Farah to help you. My back is aching. You say the same thing every day. Your back, your back. Surely it's not from doing anything around the house. What has your husband been doing to you? Tell him to go easy. Giggling, shut your mouth and pick her arms. Ugh, I'm queasy enough. I can't stand to look at her face. Fine, but we're gonna put her in your room. My room still has her smell from yesterday. I cannot stand it. Shakiba let herself be moved around and insulted. At least she was not being asked to participate in this existence. But that would not last. Boba Shuggle had other plans for her. The home had a small kitchen where the wives all helped out to cook. There was one main family room where everyone sat around during the day. The children played, and meals were shared. Surrounding those two main rooms were 4 or 5 other rooms, each assigned to one of Boba Shuggle's sons. Families slept together in one room. Only Boba Shuggle had a room of her own. Shakiba was on her side in her uncle's room when vaguely felt Boba Shuggle's walking stick jab into her thigh. Get up, you insolent girl. Enough of your nonsense. You have been asleep for a week. You're not going to get away with this kind of behavior in this house. God only knows what craziness your mother allowed. Shakiba winced. A downside to her recovery was that her body now had the energy to sense pain. Again, the stick poked into her leg. Shakiba rolled onto the side and tried to push herself back, away from her grandmother. Her head was heavy with too much sleep. Insolent and lazy, just like your mother. There was no escape from this woman. Shakiba eased herself to a sitting position and managed to focus her eyes on her grandmother. Well, have you anything to say for yourself? Disrespectful and ungrateful. We have bathed and fed you, and you can do nothing worse or more than sit there and stare like an idiot? Salam, Shakima said meekly. Sit up, sit up straight, and watch your legs. Although you may not know it, you're a girl, you should sit like one. Baba Shuggle snapped her stick against her granddaughter's arm. Shakiba flinched and straightened her back as best she could. Baba Shuggle leaned in close. Shakiba could see her deep-set wrinkles, the yellow of her eyes. I want you to tell me what happened to my son. Each syllable was punctuated by a fine spray of saliva. Your son? Shakiba thought, her mind suddenly clear and focused. Your son was my father. When was the last time you saw him? When was the last time you bothered to send him any food, any oil? You could see him in the field. You could see the pain in his movements. Did you bother to send him anything then? All you cared about was giving him another wife, saving the family name. He was my father, Shakiba left the rest unsaid. Your father? And a lot of good that did to him. He could have had a decent life. He could have had a wife to look after him, to bear him sons, who would grow our clan and work on our land. But you did your very best to keep him secluded, trapped with such a wild creature as yourself that no one would want to come near you or him. First, your mother, then you killed my son. She jabbed her stick into Shakiba's breastbone. Where is he? What did you do to him? He's with my mother. He's with my brother and my sister. They are all together, waiting for me. Baba Shuggle fumed at Shakiba's Baba Shuggle fumed at Shakiba's detachment. Okay? As she suspected her son had been buried without her knowledge, her eyes swelled with rage. Waiting for you, eh? Maybe God will see fit that your time comes soon, she hissed. I hate her. I hate her. I hate her. What the hell is her problem? I don't know. If only, Shakiba thought. Sarmina, come and get this girl. She is to help you with the chores around the house. It's time for her to start earning her stay here. She has caused this family enough